It's a discipleship tool. It helps
Mm.
us make disciples of the nations. That's our goal for the glory of God. And so we have icons associated with our values. I'm preaching a series right now on the mission, vision, and values of our church. Now, what is spoken from the pulpit is now matched in whether it's going to be on our connection card, whether it's going to be in invites, whether it's going to be on our website, wherever you look now, the core values of our church and the mission of our church is going to be made visible and clear and attractive. And so for me, like when I'm teaching through a membership class, I get this resource now to give them a visual representation of what we're trying to help them become and us as a church to become and our core values.
Guys, I have here Robert Lee. He's the pastor at First Baptist Aurora. And at this point, a good friend of mine, I feel like I can say, because of all the things that we've gotten to go through together over the last year. So Aurora is in Illinois, and he came to me early this year in 2025, wanting to talk about potentially a rebrand for his church. But there were some things that we had to work through and challenges along the way. And so I want to give him just a chance to share about those things and just his experience going through this rebrand with his church. So, Robert, introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about like your background and how you ended up at First Baptist Aurora.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon, for that introduction, and I count you as a friend too, dear brother in Christ. So appreciate that.
Praise
uh,
God.
yeah, I'm Robert. I'm a father, a husband. I got 3 boys. I've been pastoring as a lead pastor for about a year now. Was before that I was a youth pastor in a youth ministry for about 13 years, on staff and as a volunteer. And so yeah, just fresh after my first year of ministry as a lead pastor, First Baptist Aurora. Loving it. It's just great, and I'm happy to be here. It's a blessing.
That's awesome. How long were you at First Baptist Aurora before we connected?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, maybe 6 months to 8 months, maybe
Not long.
not long. No.
Yeah. And so now at this point, you've been there over a year, like closing in on a year and a half, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about what things were like before we connected and what prompted you to actually reach out to me.
Yeah, from like an aesthetic standpoint, there was really no cohesion. Our logo kind of looked more like First Midwest Bank or something like that. Like, so the logo was kind of off. No consistent color palette. Just trying to have something on our webpage was inconsistent, and so just from an aesthetic standpoint, there was no unity. There was no unity or consistent theme or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, I remember some of the old like branding and then more recently like the website before we updated that as well. Tell me a little bit about like what were some of the pain points or things that you were struggling with because of that lack of cohesion and unity in the aesthetics?
Well, I think for me, aesthetic and the mission and vision and values of our church really go hand in hand.
Mm.
And so when we can establish a consistent aesthetic that we apply regularly and in all our communication, I think it's going to reinforce our values and our mission. And so without that connection point, it's harder for the people, the congregation to kind of have this handle or this repetitive communication that eventually locks it into their heart of what we're really all about as a church. And so for me, that's what was my heart behind it. I'm not, you know, super into bells and whistles and attractional ministry, but I am into communicating the mission of God to the people of God for the glory of God. And I think aesthetics is essential to that. So that's really the biggest hang up is we didn't have consistent, clear communication, and now we do.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely got that from even from our first call together, when we talked. I remember getting off the phone with you and thinking like, "Man, this guy, like, he's not interested in this for any of the superficial reasons. He cares about it going deep." And just hearing your, like, vision and heart behind, the even the reason that you were wanting to do this really resonated with me. And it's the thing that I try to push pastors toward and into whenever we do start talking about a rebrand. That this is about like the heart of your church and the heart of God's mission and story of redemption, and just giving people something to hang that on,
Mhm.
giving people something to latch onto in that respect. Do you think that there would have been um, a lack of unity in the congregation, or some other like symptom that would have started to get worse if we hadn't gone ahead and done this rebrand?
Yeah, I think nowadays the front door of our church is our digital space. So we
Mm.
have, a concrete, brick and mortar space that we wanna welcome and, bring people into, and show hospitality, and we also have a digital space, and most people are gonna check our website out, and that's gonna be the first space they enter, and I think if without a consistent, visual identity, that communicates our values, I just think it was gonna be harder for them to really know what we're about and make it easy on them, and clear. So I think that would have been a problem, just, uh, people really not getting a clear idea of who we are and our front door to our church for most people, which is gonna be a
Mm.
website online, and so I think that's what would have been really important or lack in our church.
Were there any other options you were considering when we were talking and you were kind of starting that process?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did some due diligence and looked at a few different options. Um, yeah, by and large, you can go really expensive and but we chose Braden, because you were Christ-centered, you really loved God, and you were gonna be affordable for us, even gave us a discount as a small church. You had a heart for what we were doing, and you had, like, an intimate knowledge of, like, really the heart of Christianity that really is gonna pour over into our logo, into our colors, into our communication about the mission and vision. And so, for us, I could go with some we could have went with some, I don't know, really expensive, all the bells and whistles, but not have had the same kind of connection and clarity and goals. So that was probably the major reason why we went with you.
Okay. Did you have any hesitations even with that before like committing and pulling the trigger?
No, not
Did
really.
you did so as a pastor, I know a lot of people think like, oh, the pastor just is, making all the decisions and that kind of thing. But you have accountability structures in place. You have people that before you spend church budget on something, you've got to talk to them and get approval.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's a board, sometimes it's a budget committee or other elders in the church. Did they have any hesitations about dropping, several grand on a rebrand? And what was that like? Because the older a church is and the larger it is, sometimes the slower things can move, the harder it can be to get things approved. And First Baptist Aurora has a long history. You were relatively, I mean, even being kind of a small church, like you were growing, and you definitely had all those structures in place. So talk to me about how those conversations went. What made them end up getting off of the fence about this?
I think we had a really reasonable, down to earth leadership team that understood communication is essential to advancing the gospel and doing ministry in our area. And so I think, yeah, you know, there was some maybe, I don't know if hesitation was the right word, but I would say, um, we have gifted people who understand marketing and understand, spending money and wanted to make sure we're doing the best, choosing the best option. So I think what drove our counsel was more, just due diligence on that end, but I think they understood the importance of this. Um, from the beginning, as soon as you connect vision and your mission with your digital space, I thought they understood that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think a lot of churches, they struggle, like pastors specifically that I've talked to in the past have struggled to make that connection clear. And even though the pastor sometimes is on board, the board is not on board.
Mhm.
And getting that sale, getting that like the picture of where we're at and where we're wanting to be, and this tool that we can use for our ministry and invest in sometimes can be a challenge. So it's encouraging to see whenever you guys are able to all have unity in that decision to get on the same page and to see the value in investing in something like this.
And
Um,
I think for guys who are wanting to, pastors who want to lead their church in this direction, I think getting you know, those different bids and showing them the value of what you're about to offer. I mean, when you show, okay, this is what you'll pay for this company, and then this is what you pay for it with Braden, and you're just like, and you have it so clearly laid out in your documents and everything, and what you offer. I think for them it was like, yeah, that's a no brainer. Like, so I think the value of what you offer is so clear that just making sure you show that to the team so they can understand that if you're going to do this professionally, this is the route you wanna go. Now you can do it yourself, and I mean, it's gonna be a hodgepodge, and it's gonna take a lot of time, and I don't have time or the skills to do so, neither do anybody in our church. But if you want this done professionally, this is the route. This is the way to go.
And sometimes it is the better option to do it yourself for a time. Like, it's better than nothing. And if you don't have the budget to spend on it, sometimes that is the right direction to go. But hey, I've worked with even church plants that it's like you would think as a church plant that, your budget would be allocated elsewhere, and yet they still said, "Hey, we wanna lay this foundation right. Like, we wanna do this right the first time and do it professionally, and so we're gonna invest our upfront cost of doing this right so that we can build on it later and start the right way." So it's a good perspective to have, I think. So tell me a little bit then about, you guys decided to go forward. We worked together on the rebrand. We designed your new visual identity. We I love your mission and vision work you had already done. That was one of the things that really stood out to me about like, man, this guy has his ducks in a row, at least as far as like the vision you're trying to cast for the church. You even had sayings that go along with each of your core values to help them stick in people's hearts and minds and make it memorable. And so those were things that because that upfront work had been done, we were really able to like turn it into something visual and capture it in the branding. So that was something that was really exciting to me to get to work with you on. What's been the most valuable part of the rebrand now that we've kind of wrapped it up and finished for you guys?
It's a discipleship tool. It helps
Mm,
us make disciples of the nations. That's our goal for the glory of God. And so we have icons associated with our values. I'm preaching a series right now on the mission, vision, and values of our church. Now, what is spoken from the pulpit is now matched in whether it's gonna be on our connection card, whether it's gonna be in invites, whether it's gonna be on our website, wherever you look now, the core values of our church and the mission of our church is going to be made visible and clear and attractive. And so for me, like when I'm teaching through a membership class, I get this resource now to give them a visual representation that of what we're trying to help them become and us as a church to become and our core values. And so like, for example, one of our core values is Psalm 1 people. We want to be Psalm 1 people, people who delight in and meditate on the word of the Lord to bear fruit. And so we want to say that a lot. We want to, talk about being Psalm 1 people, help people become Psalm 1 people. And so in the membership class, there's the icon for that. And there's a symbolic representation. And so it just doesn't go away. It just doesn't get spoken and moved off. It's like again and again and again and just trying to build culture. And so I just it's a discipleship tool. I love it. That's why I think it's so important.
mm. That's so cool. I love getting to see it kinda used in the real world and see the impact it's having. So it sounds like even in your, like, your Sunday school classes, your small groups, that kinda thing, you guys are able to use this as a tool to make sure that it sticks with people longer and makes it deeper into their hearts and minds. As far as for you personally, just as a pastor, as a leader, has this, relieved any kind of, like, stress or time constraints for you that were taking up some of your time or weighing on you in the past that now, like, now that we have this tool, has that helped you in any way personally as a pastor?
Yeah, I think it just allows for greater, longevity or sustainability. Like, again, like, it's just something about having the visual identity clearly communicated and that such that, even as a pastor, when I'm trying to stay on mission, I'm trying to stay on the vision that God has given us in scripture, I just think even having it for me, it reminds me and keeps me able to continue to come back, come back, come back, come back to those things so there isn't mission drift and we're about what matters most. So I think in that way, that's really helpful. And, yeah, I think it just continues yeah, I think it's just really very helpful to always have a reference point for us to return back to, over and over again. I think it makes teaching more effective.
Yeah. Is there a moment that you could think of that comes to mind that felt like a turning point for you or kind of like a watershed moment where it's like, okay, this is a real inflection point. Maybe it was after you announced the rebrand, maybe it was as you were showing it to people initially, kind of individually. Is there anything that comes to mind for you that was like, wow, this is a really cool moment?
Yeah, the website was awesome, it's like,
Mhm.
yeah. Like, I love seeing it all together. I love that, um when you go to our website, it's really simple, it's very clear, and you know what we're about, and it's just like, I just love that now our outreach is just so much more effective in that way then. So, yeah, I would say that's probably one of the moments I thought was very important is just like we're getting consistent across all of our media. And so I said that and just preaching the series now and using the icons, using the icons we come up with our core values and loving that and seeing like the invite cards and how the invite cards match our themes. And I don't know, just I love all that, man. I just want to hit it again and again and again. um, yeah, so I love it. So, yeah, I just think there's so all of that when it all comes together, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. And it's making Christ beautiful as well, which is,
Right.
that's why I love this job. What part of the process or the experience of going through this helped you the most?
Uh, oh, if say that what do you mean by that?
Like the process. So was there something in like obviously we met together, we kind of looked at your mission and vision together. I wanted to soak it all in. So we talked through that. And then we came up with some words that we could kind of translate into a visual vibe, right? And then what we did is designed logo concepts that matched that vibe that also kind of captured your like history and brought it into the 21st century and then built in a like identity system around that and your brain guidelines and that kind of thing. And so there were lots of different parts of the process. And this
Yep.
is the same thing that I go through with every single church. But I always love to know if there was a particular part of that whole process, or even when we were rolling it out and designing your merch and website and stuff that was especially helpful to you where you were like, wow, this on its own made the whole thing worth it.
Yeah, I think the part of the process where, like, you could do, like, a mind map or, the process where you're listening to the mission, you're listening to the vision, you're listening to, like, the background of our church, and you're just gathering data, and then it gets put on a piece of paper, and that's where you kind of pull, like a summary themes. And like for us, it was historic and urban because our church building was, our sanctuary was built in 1887. Another part of our building was 1854. We've been here 188 years, and yet we're in an urban area. And so we landed on historic and urban, and that was hugely helpful, even just in thinking through like who we want to be. Historic, grounded in orthodox, Christian doctrine, but also historic as our building and how long we've been here, but then also urban. Like we want to be bold and risky and trying to reach those who are lost. And we have so many different struggles around us, a lot of different struggles with addiction and homelessness and things of that nature in urban settings. So, um, yeah, I just think that part of the process was really awesome. And then also, you listen to everything, you put it on paper, and then I was like, let me try to put it on paper now. And then I put it on paper and I gave it back to you. And then we really then brought it together. And you can take what was in my mind and in my heart, in our church's heart or mind, and bring it to graphic display, display it.
Yeah, we went back and forth a little bit, and in really in every phase of the process. Um, hopefully, you don't feel like at any point I was coming in to just tell you, okay, this is how it's going to be, and we're going to do all of these things, and there you go. See you later. Hopefully, you felt like it was more of a collaborative process.
Very collaborative and very accommodating.
Good.
And when you're doing this kind of process, you're taking 2 steps forward and you're like, "Ah, let me go 2 steps back. I don't like that." And then you being willing to go 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, and just that 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 constant back and forth, that's necessary to ultimately get to the end goal where everybody loves what's produced and it's effective. So, I think you were very good at taking feedback and trying to implement it with, like, out begrudging attitude or, like, because we had, like, I think 6 people on our visual identity committee, and a lot of opinions, a lot of different opportunities for disagreement or agreement, and just working through things. I mean, especially when it comes to colors. I think colors might
Mhm.
maybe at least maybe not, but for us, it was like we're trying to nail that down was tough.
Yeah,
Um,
it was. I think I have 14 color palette iterations in here. And that's just how it goes sometimes.
and I would
But
encourage. Good.
well, I was just gonna say I love the process of doing that. And if it results in you guys having more clarity and something that you're truly happy with, that you're not gonna rethink in 5 or even 10 years, that's that's the gold standard.
Yeah, sometimes you just wanna see if it's gonna work, and it helps you make you choose the better option, and so sometimes for what it could feel like for you is like, "Ugh, they're not even gonna like this. I'll do it," but I you didn't give us that attitude, but I just thought like, "Wow, dang, Braden's just really doing a great job just rolling with the punches and going the back and
Well,
forth."
it's always a balance. Like it's a fine line between like trying to help you get to the best result possible through my like own experience and
Mm.
just having worked on these and done these over and over again, but also being humble and hopefully trying to acknowledge where things can be improved and not hold anything so tightly or take any criticism personally. So I'm glad that that process was good for you guys and that you felt like we struck that balance. Was there anything that has like changed, or that things that you've learned about how you lead, even from like going through this process? I know that you said you feel like you have these teaching tools now that really make discipleship easier. You are also a very like outreach and evangelism oriented church. Has anything changed about how you guys approach that or talk about that outward focused mission you have?
I think, we're still in the beginning stages of unfolding everything, and utilizing the tools that we have now been given and
Mm,
have to our disposal.
mm,
I just think it's gonna continue to make our outreach more consistent. For example, like, we have these 8 core values, and then we developed, invite cards to go with these core values. Like, one is, like, real friends and real faith, and one of our values is faithful friends, and so just communicating when we're trying to invite someone to our church, like one of the heartbeats of our church is to have a people who are truly friends and
mm.
invite them into having at least one faithful friend who will stick with you. And I just think from an outreach standpoint, especially in a culture that's so lonely and devoid of friendship, that's awesome. Like, just to have that resource to pass out and, like, be able to, like, they can see, like, "Dang, this church is offering friendship. That's interesting." And just kinda be curious about that, or hospitality or whatever one of our core values. And again, so I think when it comes to outreach, it's gonna take time for our people to use those tools, and have a culture of using our invites and using these different options, but I think it's gonna be effective. I pray.
Yeah.
We
Well,
sow the
even
seed and
the limited interactions I've had with you guys and in your church, I felt this very like family oriented, kind of multi generational uh, feeling in your church that's just it's hospitable, it's warm. The way you've always described it to me is like, welcoming and true community. And so I think as you start to associate the branding with those things, people will start to recognize that and to see that and experience that themselves. And I feel like we captured that in the visual identity, just through having a chance to talk, having a chance to discuss, involving these other members of your uh, team that you assembled, and having their input. If you had to put a value on the results you've gotten, you said when you evaluated this at first, you were looking at options, doing your due diligence, and that I was a more affordable option than maybe somebody else. Do you feel like that investment that you made with me has given and will give return on those dollars?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Without a question. Absolutely. Not even a thought. I mean, it was so affordable, relatively speaking, for what you get.
Mm.
It's amazing. Yeah, I think it's a great deal. And again, you get to work with someone who really is a genuine believer, like, and wants to advance the gospel. So I think that's just and gets it. Like, you just get the internal logic and reasoning and heart of Christians, and so of Jesus. And so, like, I feel like that's huge. That's huge. And you're like that. The one of the things that's really important about your service that I really love is I forgot what you call it, but it's like direct access to you.
Yep.
Yeah, like, we get
Mhm.
to I get to I text you. I'm like I mean, we're in communication, so and you're just available and accessible, and I don't know yeah, I mean, that's a huge benefit because, again, in these kinds of situations, especially when it's like maybe a smaller church and things like that, we really need that to kinda work through some of the differences or, like, to push forward and, like, maybe another company's gonna offer you, like, 3 revisions, and it's like, "Well, dang, that's not a lot, and you're offering unlimited." Like, that's huge for especially I think a smaller church because I think you need those to really get where you wanna go, and, so yeah, just things like that, there's just like you can't it's yeah, the price is really worth it, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well, what would you say to another pastor who's on the fence about maybe working with me?
I'll take that means do it, no, I don't know. I mean, everything I said in this interview, I just think first recognizing the importance of or at least I think is very helpful and a very useful tool to connect your aesthetic, your visual identity to the actual mission and vision of your church and use it as a discipleship tool. If you don't have that in your church, I think you should get it. And I think you should go with you because you're affordable. It's excellent work. You're a great designer. And I think for those reasons, it's really clear a great decision. I don't think you'll regret it. And just also another part of those really, I think, distinguishes you is the rollout retainer. Once you do this process, you're going to get this awesome logo, this awesome color palette. You're going to get your icons or whatever the package you choose, and you get all this and be like, well, man, how are we going to apply it now? Because who's going to be able to create the invite cards, the connect cards, or do the website, or all the variety of different things we did? I mean, we did a ton of stuff, and that rollout retainer, and you just say, "Oh, you want that done? I'll get that. You want that done? I'll get that done." And then applying our theme consistently, you're just not gonna get that anywhere else. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they can find us. I don't think so. So that's what I would say. That's what
That's
I
good. I've
yeah.
I've enjoyed I've had so much fun, with our time on the retainer, just getting to see, like, okay, here are the real world ways that now this brand and all this work that we've done is gonna work itself out, and being able to help guide you guys through that rollout process, and, "Oh, we should think about this," like, "I know you're saying you want this and you have this idea. Here's an even better way that we could maybe do it." So that's a really fun process to see. Okay, here's where the rubber meets the road. How do we do this most effectively? Well, you just gave a piece of advice as far as the framing for pastors that might be in the same situation you were in. How do we think about this? What are some of the things that should motivate you to go ahead and take that next step? Is there any other piece of advice you'd give to someone who was kind of in that same situation that you were in?
Yeah, I think just this process, the advice I would give is getting your mission, your vision, the values, and your team's values and your church's values clear. And I think the advice I would give is once you have that and you can show whoever's part of the decision making process how this is going to really make us more effective in communicating this. And, you know, Jesus says, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing and teaching them all that I commanded. And so if we can find teaching tools that help us accomplish making mature Christians, I
Mm.
think we just want to use it. We want to do it. So I just think trying to make sure that whoever is part of that decision process understands that this isn't just about being attractional. It's really not. It's about just being effective and accomplishing the Great Commission.
I love that. So, Robert, tell me, what are you most excited for in this next chapter of ministry?
Seeing those core values that we developed and the icons and seeing those continually be um, casted, communicated, lived, and such that it bears like this fruit, and God would just have His way. And I mean, and just I don't know. I mean, we can't make things happen as pastors and as Christians, but man, we can pray, and then we can
Mhm.
do what's necessary, and then see if He gives the growth. And so, if we just see these sayings and these core values we came up with get lived out, it's gonna be awesome, man. It's gonna be
It's
great.
pretty awesome. Well, one plants, another waters, but the Lord brings the increase, right?
Amen.
And I'm just honored to have been a small part of the, I don't know if you call it the watering or the planting, but whatever that is, putting that watering can in your hand at least, to shepherd your flock well, to care for them, and to nurture that spiritual growth in your congregation. It's been really cool to see. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
I think I got a lot out.
You sure did. I love it, man. This is why we do these, because it's just cool to see, and nobody can say it better than you, because you're the one in the trenches, pastoring and doing the work of the ministry. So I really appreciate your partnership in all this, man. And it's been a blast.